Yeah.
And so let's think about the reason that we're coming together today, and our reason for wanting to come together to learn more and develop more. Our facility with Tibetan debate, which is known as the magical key of reasoning that opens the door to the Dharma. And our reason for doing that is precisely that, is that we want to open the door to the Dharma, meaning to the understandings and practices that will help us have less suffering, more happiness, not just in this life, not just in future lives, but ultimately in terms of liberation from suffering altogether, but far more importantly, enlightenment, illumination, complete accomplishment of our potential to be of best possible help to all beings everywhere. So it's with that aim that we do each thing we do, starting with reconnecting and opening our eyes if they're closed, and chatting. All right. So this is it. You guys know everything there is to be known about Tibetan debate. And so yeah, today I wanted to focus mostly on any questions, lingering doubts, remaining obstacles that you guys are noticing or are finding. Yeah, and let's jump in from there. Anybody have any questions? Sheila?
So I was reviewing in the book because I kind of like had gone blank after a couple of weeks of not doing this. But I noticed sometimes like they give the reason, like it says, take, I don't know, the subject chair, it's matter because it's matter. I mean, they use the reasoning. I don't quite get how that like works.
I think you couldn't say it's matter because it's matter, but what you could say is take the subject chair, it's matter because it's chair, right? Let me just think for 1 second about it's matter because it's matter. It's matter because it's matter, as I understand it, wouldn't be considered a valid reason because for it to be a valid reason, at least in the case of a syllogism, for it to be a valid syllogism, there would have to be somebody who has a perfect awareness that the subject is the reason, but is wondering whether or not the subject is the predicate. So nobody could have a perfect awareness that chair is matter, but be wondering whether chair is matter. So that certainly wouldn't be a valid syllogism, that's for sure. Sorry, I'm just making it more confusing. Can you find it in the book? Yeah.
Let me find it.
Yeah.
It's in those other works. Anyway, go ahead. You talk about something else.
Okay. We'll come back to you. What else from anybody? Yes, please, Linda.
If we have time, did we talk about maybe stepping through part of that video piece by piece? No, that's not a specific question.
I'd be more than happy to do it if folks would like.
If that's of interest to more of us.
Does that seem to be of interest? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm absolutely happy to do that. For sure. I'll start pulling it up now. Anything else? Yeah.
Maybe we could look at Linda's PDFs.
Oh,
I
you
just
have
sent them
PDFs?
like 3 minutes before to
Oh.
our student group. So
Did some
Oh.
awesome flowchart of what you did.
Oh, that's great. I'd love to see that. I'd love to look at that.
Like bring it up on the screen.
Yeah.
did I email them to you, Gus? Or do you want
Yeah,
me to
sure. I mean,
share screen?
yeah, absolutely. Or whatever you prefer.
You want to share screen? I'll make you a co-host.
Okay.
I apologize for not sending buddies. Didn't do it for 2 weeks. I'm really bad.
Oh, you're derelict in your duties.
Well, I offered and I guess people were waiting.
No problem.
You see that, Linda?
Yes. Okay. I'm trying to
Where is
figure out. I guess I'll just share my whole screen. It's kind of a mess, but that's okay. Oh, I don't know what happens with the Zoom. Let me just do it one by one. That's safer. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so what I did was I tried to make the Gus, your PowerPoint into a flow chart.
Oh.
That was my first attempt about the whales, and include your reasoning in, wait, that's right.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll make it smaller so it fits.
Oh, Linda, this is great.
So there's the different, sort of the dark gray is what the defender says, and the dark purple is what the challenger says. And then this is some of the reasoning, or sort of the back
brilliant.
part. And then there's a second page that goes through the rest of it.
That's great. Hold on, let me just see. Big subject whale plus their fish because they live in the ocean. Yes, explicit. Whales if also live in the ocean, except yes, 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 yes. There's a typo like in the very beginning. There's I accept. I think it should be I accept why.
Why? You're
But
right.
this is
Oh my
brilliant.
gosh.
This is brilliant.
Okay. Yeah, I'll fix that and resend. And if anyone else has things to change, this is in this sort of strange tool, so that's why it's a PDF, but at least it exists.
Oh, I know.
So,
It's like
and then, so the second one is just the second page of that.
It's true. In the ocean. I think this was quite over the ocean. Yes.
And then the one that, because I still couldn't use this myself very well during a debate, I kind of morphed your notes.
Maybe it could be turned into a card game.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, and fling cards.
But you could choose, like you could have stack 2, like would be like the next step, and you choose one of the 3 options, and then
Oh yeah.
have
Yeah.
like stack 4 would be one of them.
That's great.
And then this is the one that I think might be actually most useful for me in the middle of a debate, because I was switching between the different pages, challenger, defender. And there might be, I'm sure there are probably mistakes in how I've mapped them onto each other, but
This is great.
tried to include everything. So if this, then that. If you get
This
a
is
simple
fantastic.
So anyway, I'll forward these to you, Gus, and
If you
everyone else
would,
should
I'd
have
so
it.
appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you so much for this. What a beautiful service that is. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. All right, Sheila, were you able to find it?
I'm good. Well, what it says, where to go? I've lost it. Hang on. Oh, so it says here, like, take the subject flower. It follows it is internal matter because it's matter.
Aha,
Is that okay? I mean,
that's
that's like a
okay.
cop-out.
That's
That's a little
no,
different.
that's not. That's this is a good question, and it's not a cop out. That's not only okay, that is crucial sometimes. So I mean, I'm trying to think what's the easiest way to explain it. I think for now I'll say this, that you can't have the reason and the predicate to be proven be identical. You can't say the same thing twice, but it's okay if they're synonyms. It's okay if one is a subset of the other. It's okay if one is the other, but with a description. It's okay if if they're referring to the same, basically anything else is okay. And the reason for that is that sometimes we as humans, we're not perfect logical thinking machines. It's interesting the way Western logic goes about it. Like, Western logic is like good, like it's the most efficient system of reasoning out of the two that I know for computers, for like perfectly reasoning machines, that if they know something one way, then it follows that they already know something the other way. But human beings were not like that. And Tibetan debate is designed with that in mind, right? That sometimes we might realize that Joe is an unmarried man, but we might be like, wait, is he a bachelor though? We just don't have the two thoughts together. And so somebody can come at us with a consequence and say, take the subject Joe. It follows that he is a bachelor because he's an unmarried man. And we might say, oh yeah. Do you see what I'm saying, first of all, right? So if I were to say, and it really, but this isn't just theoretical either, like I've had this happen in debates where, I could say to somebody, take the subject, the I sense power, it follows that it's matter. And they'll say, why? I'll say, it follows that it's matter because it's internal matter. And then I'll say, oh, yeah, that's true. It is internal matter. So yeah, of course it's matter. So yes, I accept. You see? It will, like, for now, maybe you can just take a leap of faith and check it out for yourself. But I assure you, it will happen and it will work. And it's fair because you're not, it's not like you're trying to prove something that's not been proven before in that case. You're just trying to call somebody's attention to something that they already have all the pieces to, and you're just helping them recognize it, right? Now, it would also be fair to say it the way that you read it, which is take the subject, whatever, the I sense power, it follows that it is internal matter because it is matter. That's a fair thing to say. It isn't correct, however, because the answer is there's no pervasion. It's not true that whatever is matter is necessarily internal matter, because there are some things that are external matter. But that's incidental to that example. Does that address your question?
Yeah, kind of.
Let me just see if there's something else that I can say about that. Like, think about it this way. What if I said, take the subject Canada. It follows that its head of state is a king. I think, I could be wrong. But let's go with that. And then you say, why? No, I mean, Canada is a parliamentary democracy. The head of state isn't a king. The head of state is a prime minister. You think all of that to yourself. So you say, why? And you say, take the subject Canada. It follows that its head of state is a king because it is King Charles III. And then you might think to yourself for a second and say, wait a minute, that's true. That's true. King Charles III is, because he's the one in the currency. Oh, yes, I accept. You see what I mean? Like, I'm just pointing something out, like to help you put two things together. Right? That's different from an instance where I might be giving you something that you really had never like thought about before. Then I'd probably have to break it down in a different way. So they accomplish like slightly different purposes in different contexts, but it's fair game. And remember, because remember too, you don't have to accept, you know, like you don't have to accept. Like it's not that, like if I say it's a king because it's King Charles, and if you don't think that it is King Charles, then you can say, no, the reason is not established. You know, this is matter because it's internal matter. You can still say, no, the reason is not established. It's not like you're forced to accept because they gave you a reason. That would be unfair. Because then I could prove anything by just saying stuff. All right. Anything else?
There's some things that are defined as sort of themselves. Maybe that's what she was asking about.
Like that which is suitable to be a blank, you mean? Like,
yeah, because this is reasonably understood to be that, or so, I don't know how it's
right.
worded.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
form is defined as that which is suitable to be form, which just feels like
Yes.
a cop out of an answer.
Yes, that's different. That's different. That's different. That is a definition that's being posited. If somebody, like, let's say you were arguing with somebody and you said, take the subject, you know, this pen, it follows that it is form. And they said, why? And I said, because it is suitable to be form. It's not that, again, they can say it's the reason is not established, you know, and they can say there's no pervasion. You know, they can say either of those things if they don't accept that definition that you're working with, right? And then you can say, no, the reason is established because the definition of form is that which is suitable to be form, right? They don't have to accept that, remember. You see what I'm saying? It's not like, this isn't like making it so that you can prove anything by just defining it as itself. The person can accept your definition or not, right? So then, it's not so much a question of, is it fair to your opponent to define things self-referentially? It's perfectly fair because they can just say, I don't accept, you know? The question is it useful? Like when is it useful to define something self-referentially like that, right? And the answer in this system, first of all, you don't have to, right? You can do whatever you want. But the answer is in the system is basically getting at the idea that there are some phenomena that are just like the baseline. It's almost like, I feel like it's like Kant had something similar. It's like space and time, like for Kant, like these are things that you can't define. These are just like the baseline intuitions that we're working with in the first place, you know? Like it's so color is one of those examples where if somebody said, a sighted person said, but how do you define color? It's hard to, you know, it's like, well, color is a color, you know what it is, you know, that's basically what those definitions are saying. Those definitions are basically saying, like, come on, you know what it is, right? Like, I'm not gonna give you like defining characteristics of it any further than this. We're free to do that and we're free to not. You know, if you can think of a way to explain what you mean, by all means, you can do it. But the system does allow for that in these rare cases where we're talking about things that are arguably like just fundamentally, you know, like unbreakdownable, as it were. Right? It's almost like you can almost think of it as like, there's almost like a built-in assumption that nobody's going to argue whether or not red is a color. But if there is somebody that you're arguing whether or not red is a color, then yeah, then you'll have to think of, well, why do I think that red is suitable to be posited as a hue? You know, and then you'll have to give further reasons for that. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah,
Can I ask a
Yes.
question, actually, just following on from that?
of course.
It's more, I can't remember who it was. Oh yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago. I was in a practice session with Brett, and we were debating one of the themes that you gave us. It was, and they were all kind of Dharma related questions. Anyway, at one point, the question came up of like making a reference to the Dharma, and then someone had to say, like, it was like, posit an example of the Dharma, right? We're like trying to find this. And it was really difficult. And we eventually settled on something simple that would ask to move forward, which was like the teachings of the Buddha, right? But I mean, I'm just wondering if in like a more strictly Buddhist setting, like if it's monks doing the debating, is it is it agreed ahead of hand, like you were saying, for example, the color, right? We use this as a term that we already understand. If someone wants to talk about the Buddha or the Dharma, is it something which is already established, which is worked with, or is it something which is frequently worked out?
Wait, I didn't hear the last bit of your question. Is it something that's...
Is it something which is worked out over the course of the debate in order to move forward to the more specific
Oh, I
terms?
see. Yeah. So I think I might have said this at some point in the past, but there's different ways that you can, like, debate is a tool, and there's different ways that you can use it, right? One way that you can use it is almost like to review, oh, yes, I was going to say study, and then I was like, wait, I know that in the UK you have a different word. It's review, right? What you do before an exam is you review. Is that right? Is that the word?
Revise.
Yeah. Revise, that's the word I was trying to remember. Revise, yes. So like you're reviewing the material, and you're in English, in American English, studying, in UK English, revising, right? You can use debate for that. And there you're kind of limiting yourself to like the material that was presented in class, so to speak, so like the only answers that would be acceptable would be answers that are from the lecture or the chapter or whatever. And a lot of what I think the monks in the monasteries do, my understanding, a lot of it is that. Not all of it, but a lot of it is that, like they have a class, and then the way they study or revise is that they debate it, and it's ridiculously effective. And it's not just memorizing. I mean, it's not at all just memorizing, but it's like getting a deep understanding of what the system that was just explained to them is. It would be like if you were taking a math class, and and the professor explained, these are the natural numbers, these are the integers, these are the rational numbers, these are the real numbers, these are the complex numbers, and they explained all of that. And like you have all of these pieces of information, and then you go out with your classmates and you debate, like what's the pervasion between a natural number and an integer, right? And you come out of that very clear on that. But it's not like, in that case, it's not like necessarily something was proven to you about the outside world. It's just you're very clear on what the system that the professor is presenting says. You see? So when the monks are doing that, then yes, then the rule, as it were, in that context is that you're only going by the definitions that were given, and that's it. Right? So if you don't remember the definition that was given, then you kind of like, quote unquote, like lose the debate or something, as it were. Now, in terms of just going, I guess, but then on the other hand, if the point of the debate is indeed to kind of establish the truth of the matter, which that's ultimately the point of debate for all of us, then it's up to the person debating what they want to pursue. Like if my goal as a defender is to really understand what we mean by Dharma, my goal is to really understand that, then I don't want to just kind of say something that I know I can get away with, because then I might get away with it, but I won't really have understood it. You know, I want to say something that I actually am not sure. Like, would this be an example? Would this not be an example? And let me posit it and see what happens. Did I answer your question, or did I go off track along the way?
Yeah, that's
somewhere?
totally great.
Yeah? Oh, okay, good. Good. All right. Take the subject Tibetan debate. It follows that you guys have no questions about how to do it.
Why?
Ah, follows that you do have questions about how to do it. Pause it.
Oh shit. You can tell by the fact that I can't answer you quickly is that I do have questions. Pause it. Okay, hang on a second. I can totally posit something. Take the example, me, who has questions about Tibetan debate.
That's your positing. So it follows that the subject, you who have questions about Tibetan debate, is a question that you have about Tibetan debate.
No. No. Good point. That's a good point.
But no, all kidding aside, you know, like, I don't want to, you know, keep you guys hostage and stare at you and say, ask me questions if you don't have any. And so, okay, so I'll take you at your word that you don't. And so if you guys are interested in going through that video again and going through it piece by piece, I'm happy to do that. Let me just, in order to accomplish this, oh no, I don't have to do that. Let me share my screen and share this. Let me, you know, like 3 years into using Zoom, I'm finally starting to learn how to use it. Oh crap, I said that too soon. I forgot to share the sound. Hold on a minute. Try that one more time. Here we go, and here we go. And that, I think, should work. Linda, you were the one who brought it up. Did you have a framework in mind of when you'd like me to, would it be helpful? Well, or anybody really, but would it be helpful to pause after each exchange, after each time I accept something or I posit something, or is that too much?
I wasn't the last one, so personally I'm okay with going through it, but of course that's just me.
Okay, thank you.
I know there were points in it where it's like there was sort of the standard things, and then it kept going pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I was losing it. So
Okay.
I don't know, but that's not very clear.
No, I think I understand. In fact, I'm having another thought. Is there a way, does anybody know, is there a way that I can share two things at the same time on my screen, or is that too ambitious and doesn't exist? Let me just check. Hold on. If I stop sharing this.
Share your desktop.
Yeah, you can share the whole thing.
Oh yeah, I can do that, right? I've never done that before, but I guess I can. Okay, then let me try this. Let me just open up a new thing here. I wonder how visible it will be, but we can try. Thank you for bearing with me, guys. Wait, I think this will be better actually. If I do this, and then I do this, then I do that. And then I can do, that's good enough. Okay, let's see how this works. Share screen.
I think you can also select multiple windows, but
Okay.
I've never tried it.
Where do I? Sorry, this is just advanced. Oh, look at that. Okay. I'm going to find our own QuickTime player. Okay, I see what to do. Wait, sorry. Let me try that one more time. Last time, I think. QuickTime player. Aha. Let me change this. Change that. Okay. Do you guys see two things? Yeah, fantastic. Look at that. Okay. Let me. Sweet. Okay. Here's what we'll try to do. I don't know that this has ever been done before in the history of Tibetan debate, but we'll try to annotate this as we go. We'll try to is the key operative thing here. Okay. All right, here we go. You can hear it.
Okay, so to start off our debate, let's take a look at the concept of infinity. Okay, so are you familiar with the concept of infinity?
I believe so.
A bit.
We'll find out.
Okay, enough to say something about it. So, so I won't define it for you, but I'll just, thinking about the primary goal within Buddhist practice to liberate, benefit, bring happiness and remove suffering from infinite sentient beings, from all sentient beings. So sometimes people say they're infinite. So I'll ask you, take the subject, sentient beings, living beings, follows that they are infinite.
I accept.
Okay, and so take the subject, sentient beings. It follows that they're not only infinite, but also countless.
I accept.
Okay, so it follows that if it is countless, then it's necessarily infinite.
Why?
Why? Oh, okay, so it follows that if it is countless.
This might have been a little too ambitious. I don't know if I can keep up so quickly. If it is countless, then it is infinite. Why? Are you guys following so far? Right. So if you see the subject we're debating is sentient beings, right? I'll stop trying to capitalize and uncapitalize because that just slows me down. But it follows that they are infinite. I accept. It follows that they are countless. I accept. So now Venerable Donyo is curious to see if I accept both of them just coincidentally, or if I accept one because of the other. So he's checking to see what do I think about how those two things relate, right? So he's saying it follows that if it is countless, then it is infinite. And I said, why? Right? So what I've implied here is it is not the case that whatever is countless is necessarily infinite, which in itself implies there exists something that is countless but not infinite. You follow? Yes, Andrew.
Can you just clarify, because the subject, they are sentient beings, so that's the subject, they. but then we're going, if it is countless, is the
Yes.
the they sentient beings? We're just going to singular, or
Fantastic question. Fantastic question. Very important question. So this, the statement of quality, they are infinite. Follows that? I'll take out that it follows that. Like, we'll just assume that for the sake of this. They are infinite. That's a statement of quality. They are countless. That it's a statement of quality. If it is countless, then it is infinite. That's a statement of pervasion, right? The way we learned it was whatever is countless is necessarily infinite, right? It's just two different ways of translating the same thing. Statements of pervasion never have a subject, really, right? Because their subject is a stand-in for anything whatsoever, right? So it follows that anything whatsoever that is countless necessarily is also infinite, right? I could just as easily kind of like make this under a separate heading because it's not referring back to the subject sentient beings, right? I'm keeping it under this heading just because we haven't changed the subject yet. So just for ease of notation. Does that answer that? Does that make sense? That's why it's so important in beginning to emphasize statements of quality versus statements of pervasion. They're two different animals. One is a mammal and one is a whale. I don't know. Okay.
It's not necessarily infinite. I accept.
You just got me to accept this.
Let's look at those two, okay? So can you posit the difference between countless and infinite in terms of 3 joints, 4 joints, equivalence, and contradiction?
I accept.
Okay, which of those is it?
It's 3 joints.
3?
Okay, so how do the two compare? Countless and infinite. And then my answer was between them, there are 3 possibilities, right? In fact, let me just go ahead and do this. Let's look at this as its own mini conversation.
So if it's 3 joints, then which pervades which?
If it is infinite, then it is necessarily countless.
Oh, okay. And but if it's countless,
it's not necessarily infinite.
Which you already answered that. Okay, so it follows that if it is count, so we already went through an example which you accepted to be both infinite and countless.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a joint which is both of those two.
Yes.
So that was living beings. Then let's see.
So did you follow that? So implicit in this is there is something that is countless, but is not infinite, right? And by all rights, Venerable Donyo should ask me, posit something. But he's just pointing out that I already posited something. But he's wrong. I think I haven't posited something, right? Hold on, let me just see here. Very that they're countless. Oh, this is interesting. Until I wrote this all out, I didn't realize that I hadn't posited something. Well, he could ask me to posit something, but there it is.
Follows that. So if it is countless, it is not necessarily infinite. So follows you can give an example.
I accept.
Okay, posit an example.
Take the subject, the number of eons needed to become enlightened.
Take the subject, the number of eons necessary to become enlightened. Okay.
Okay. Right. So now Venerable Donyo is zeroing in on this statement that I just made. Right. So I accepted that there is something countless but not infinite. He asked me for an example, and I said the number of eons needed to become enlightened. So now we're going to debate about that. So now we're changing the subject.
Gus, can you make it the sound louder from your end?
The sound louder.
Yeah, on the debate, sometimes it's hard to hear.
I don't think I can, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, when you write it, it sort of refreshes.
Okay, good. Okay, so now Venerable Donio is kind of hanging on to this last thing that I said, right? I said the number of eons needed to become enlightened is countless but not infinite. And so he just changed the subject. He said, take the subject, the number of eons needed to become enlightened.
That it is countless.
I accept.
I see. So what does it mean, by the way, to become enlightened? If all you can describe briefly what it means to become.
Okay, so this is what he's doing here. Okay.
I'm going to accept.
Okay, call it a brief description or definition of becoming enlightened.
Take the subject, having perfected all good qualities and eliminated all limitations, and thereby having become omniscient.
Okay, so that's possible for a human to do. Take the subject, the state of having, or the condition of having eliminated all, how do you say it?
Having I forget how I said, maximize all good qualities and eliminated all limitations.
Okay. Eliminated all limitations, thus having become omniscient. So it follows that is something sentient, a living being can do, a person can do.
I accept.
Okay, so take that subject, it follows that it takes a countless number of eons to do that.
I accept.
So take the subject, the number of eons required to attain that kind of enlightenment, it follows that it is countless because.
Okay. Hold on a second.
Because it takes 3 times a countless set of eons to become enlightened.
3 times.
Okay, let's pause here for a second. Okay. Whew. First of all, how are we doing in terms of following along? Yeah, do you guys understand the logic of what's happening here? Right. So let's review this. Let's review this. I hope I'm not going too slowly, but I think this might be helpful. We started with the subject sentient beings. They are infinite. I accept. In fact, I'm not going to highlight this now just for the sake of time. Well, you know what? I might as well. Well, every time I say I'm not going to do something, you can bet your bottom dollar that the next thing I'm going to do is do it. Okay. Okay. What I just highlighted, this is my root thesis here, right? This is the first thing of substance that I've accepted. Okay. So that's where we started from. The subject sentient beings, they are infinite. I accept. Now they are countless. I accept. Okay. We know that I said that they're infinite, they're countless. So now Venerable Donio is questioning, okay, so is it true that whatever is countless is necessarily infinite? I said, why? Meaning no, right? And he asked, how do they compare countless and infinite? I said, between them, there are 3 possibilities, right? When you say there's 3 possibilities, it means that one pervades the other, but the other doesn't pervade the one. So he asked, which one pervades which? And I said, if it is infinite, then it's necessarily countless. But if it is countless, then it's not necessarily infinite, right? So it follows from that there is something that is countless but is not infinite. And so he asked me to posit an example, and I said, the subject, the number of eons needed to become enlightened. So now he said, okay, then take the subject, the number of eons needed to become enlightened. Follows that it is countless. I accept. I had to accept. I just gave it as an example of something that is countless. Right? Now, he could have continued from there in a straight line, as it were, but he decided to take a step back and check my understanding about what I was saying. It was very kind, you know? It's like, because I just made the statement, the number of eons needed to become enlightened is countless, right? And so he said, well, let's see, do you know what you're talking about when you say to become enlightened? So he said, no, take the subject to become enlightened. follows that you can describe briefly what it means, right? He forced me to explain what I mean by that. I accept, and then I said, having perfected all good qualities and eliminated all limitations, and thereby having become omniscient, right? So he said, okay, so like basically saying that's what you're talking about when you say become enlightened. When you like, so you said to become enlightened takes countless eons. When you say that by become enlightened, this is what you mean here. You can see what I'm highlighting as I'm highlighting it, right? Yeah. So I said, yeah. So he said, okay, then let's talk about that. Take the subject, having perfected all good qualities and eliminated all limitations, and thereby having become omniscient. So in other words, let's talk about what you, Gus, are talking about. It's something that a living being can do. Yeah. And you're saying it takes a countless number of eons to do that. And I said, yes. Right. Now, what he shifted here is he shifted the focus of the sentence, right? Like we're still talking about the same concept, right? But just to make the consequences flow more easily off the tongue, is that, okay, then let's talk about the number of eons that it takes to become enlightened. It follows that it is countless because he's asking me, like, you're saying that they're countless. Why? Right. So this is subtle, but just so as to prevent confusion. Here he said it takes a countless number of eons to do that. He could have very easily gotten at the same point by saying it takes a countless number of eons to do that because, right, that would have gotten the same information out of me, right? But to make it simpler to conceptualize, to keep track of, he changed the subject to, let's focus on the number of eons that it takes to become enlightened. It is countless because, and now my answer was, because it takes 3 times a countless eon to become enlightened, right? This answer, by the way, as I sit here in the clear light of day, is not perfectly phrased, right? This is a grammatically incorrect way to answer. What I really should have said is so the subject is the number of eons it takes to become enlightened. I should have said because it is a number of eons, because it is a number that represents a set of eons, and that set of eons is composed of 3 sets, each of which is countless. And you maybe can forgive me and understand why I didn't phrase it that way, right? But anyway, is everybody on the same page so far? Yes, Andrew.
Just a quick question. When Venerable Donya is doing things like, is that just to try and kind of put you off, or is there another reason behind that?
I mean, you'd have to ask him. Now, I'm kidding. Like, I can think of 2 possibilities. One is that, and the other is that he's thinking about what he wants to say next. And my guess is that it's a combination of the 2, right? Is that, like, he could have said, like, but then I'd have been like, you know. But when he says, then I'm like, ooh. Okay, is this helpful? Yeah, should we keep going? Yeah, okay.
Okay, so take the subject that one of those countless sets of eons.
Okay, hold on. I just need to catch up here. The subject, one of those countless sets of eons. Now notice here, this is an abbreviated subject. If we wanted to spell out the subject, we would say the subject, one of the countless sets of eons it takes to become enlightened, right? But the point is we can refer to the subject however we need to, as long as we're both very clear on what we're talking about, right? So we know what we're talking about. So one of those countless sets of eons that we're talking about.
To become enlightened follows that it's uncountable.
I'm going to say why.
Follows that it's uncountable because it is countless.
Okay. So watch this. Because it is countless. Okay. So here's what happened. So this is the first time so far, I think, that Venerable Donya has given me a complete reason, a complete consequence with a reason, like a full consequence that has a reason, right? Up until now, it's been just a simple consequence without a reason. Now there's a reason. It says it's uncountable. I said why. He could have said it follows that it's not uncountable, but instead he gave me a reason. He said it's uncountable because it is countless, right? Which notice I had said here, right? I had said that it's countless, right? Wait. No, I had said, sorry, I had said here that it's countless, but somewhere I had said it, but I think it's there, right? I could change my mind, but this is what he's basing it on.
There is no pervading.
It follows that
Right, so here I said, no, I'm doing it. There is no pervasion. Now notice, what do I mean by that? So, can somebody actually say, can somebody spell out my answer, there is no pervasion? Linda?
I'd have to have the A and the B and the C mapped out and see if C is pervaded by B, I think, but it's so far in there.
Let's
I
think
don't have
about this. Let's think about this together, right? So this is the subject here, right? One of those countless sets of eons. The predicate is, it is uncountable, right? And the reason is, it is countless. So if I answer there is no pervasion, what is it that I'm saying? Anybody, what is it that I'm saying?
He's saying that countless, whatever is countless is not necessarily uncountable.
Right, exactly. I'm just going to phrase it this way, but it's exactly what you said. It's not necessarily the case that whatever is countless is necessarily uncountable, right? In other words, there is something that is countless, but is not uncountable, right? Because he said that the subject is uncountable. I said why. He said it's countless. When I say there's no pervasion, what I'm saying is, yeah, it is countless, but that doesn't mean that it's uncountable, right? That's what I'm saying when I say there's no pervasion, which implies that I believe that there are countless things that are not uncountable. I mean, that there are things that are countless that are not uncountable, right? Okay.
is countless, it is not necessarily uncountable.
See?
I accept.
So it follows it is countable.
I accept.
Okay. So now he's saying it is countable. Right? So I said it's he said it's uncountable. I said why? He tried to prove it to me, and I kind of refuted that proof. So now he's going with the other option. He's saying, instead of proving it to me, he's saying like, okay, then let's assume that what you're saying is true. Then it is countable. If it's not uncountable, then it is countable. Yeah? Okay, this might be the trickiest one so far. So subject, one of those countless sets of eons, right? He says it is uncountable. And I say why. So now he has two options. He can either throw at me the opposite. He can say it is not uncountable, right? Or he can give me a reason. Either one is fine, right? So he chooses to first give me a reason, and he gives me this reason. It is countless, right? But I don't buy that reason. I say there's no pervasion, right? And so then he points out, so you're saying that it's not necessarily true that whatever is countless is necessarily uncountable. And I accept that. He could keep challenging that. He could keep chipping away at that. But instead, he decides to give up on giving me a reason. And instead, he goes back and does the other thing to my why. You know, it is uncountable. Why? Okay, it's countable then. Yes, Linda.
I've lost how this links to the original. If I were the challenger, I'd be in trouble.
Got it. Got it. So like, how the hell did we get from here to there?
It seems counter to the original, what the defender, what you were trying to, I think, assert. I don't know.
Are you talking about my root thesis? Is like, are you referring to like the early parts of the debate or something down the line?
The root, because I think it was about what is countless. And so having an example of something that's countable doesn't, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I've lost the root.
No. I think you haven't lost. I mean, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, I think you've done the opposite of lost it. I think you've got it. Like, I think what you're saying is, Gus, you're contradicting yourself. Good. Okay, no, say it. By all means, don't hesitate to say it. That's what Venerable Donya thinks also, right? And that's what he's trying to prove. And that's the point. Like, if we didn't contradict ourselves by mistake without realizing it, then there would be no need for somebody to point it out to us through debate, right? Like, what he's trying to do is he's trying to show me that I've tied myself into a knot and I'm misunderstanding something and I'm claiming things that go against each other, right? As it turns out, I don't think I was. I think that these things are, I still stand by all these things. I think that sentient beings are infinite, that they're I think, I'm not saying that this is true, but I still hold this, that they're countless. I believe that whatever is infinite is necessarily countless, but whatever is countless is not necessarily infinite. I believe that the countless sets of eons that becomes it is uncountable. It is countless. It is not uncountable. It is countless. Countless does not mean that it's uncountable. And yeah, and ultimately we need to figure out how does all of this relate back to infinite.
Yeah, because uncountable and countable, it's like two different.
These two are a dichotomy.
Threads.
Right? These two are a dichotomy for sure. That there's no question of. So I rejected, I said that it is not uncountable. He said it's uncountable. I said, why? So he's saying, well, it's countable then. So I'm going to have to accept or change my mind.
So it follows it has a count.
So I accepted, I forgot. So I accepted. And now he's saying it has a count. Okay. By the way, this is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier in response to Sheila's question, right? Like you notice how I'm underlining. Oh, am I back? Okay. So you notice how I'm underlining some of these words, right? I'm underlining these words because it seems like they're saying the same thing. Right? Or it can seem that way. Uncountable, countless, countable has a count, right? And what Venerable Donya is helping me do is either realize that they do mean the same thing and then see my mistake, or clarify very precisely that I think that these things aren't synonyms really, right? So he said it follows that it has a count. I don't remember what I'm going to say.
I accept.
So it follows it is count having.
I accept.
So it follows it is not countless.
Why?
Okay, right? So I think what's happened is counterintuitive. I accept it is not, countless. And he actually, I'll just do this just for, right? He emphasized the less, and I said why. Okay? And just like the Spanish Inquisition, he was not expecting that, right? Because notice all the things I'm saying here. It's not uncountable, right? I said why. It is countless. It is countable. It has a count. It is count having. I'm not accepting that it is not countless. I'm still standing by that it is countless. Okay? So I said why, and if he's polite, he's not going to just lose his mind.
Because it is countful.
There's no provision.
All right.
Okay. So because it is countful. And here I say there is no pervasion. Okay. Somebody tell us in plain English what the hell is going on so far. Like just here, just in this section.
Are you just trying to use, or is Venerable Donyo just trying to use synonyms for, or different ways of saying the same thing to try and catch you out?
Yes, not in like a malicious way.
And I didn't mean maliciously, but just
To point out to me that I'm making a mistake, right? Definitely, definitely, right? So if I just kind of here, I'll just do this.
Giving you synonyms.
Yes, it is.
Antonyms. Synonyms for antonyms. For the antonym.
We're trying everything, right? So I'm just putting this here like in brackets because this is, he said it's uncountable and I said why. So basically what I'm saying is it is not uncountable. It is not uncountable. It is countless. I agree with that, right? But there is no pervasion, meaning I'm saying something can be countless, but not uncountable. Something can be countless, but not uncountable. So he's saying, oh, so it's not uncountable, like you said, right? So it's countable. Yes. It has a count. Yes. It is count having. Yes. It is not countless then, right? It is count having, so it is not countless. Why? Right? Well, it is count full. There is no pervasion. So I'm saying something can be count full and still be countless. Okay? Now, whether I'm right or wrong, I think my reasoning is going to come to a head now. So I think you'll see at least what I believe.
Okay. So countless, it takes up the countless. It follows that it is not the direct negation of having count.
Okay. So watch this. This is what Venerable Donyo did here. The subject, countless. It is not the direct negation of having count. Right? Like it needs to be that I would accept that for what I'm saying to be coherent, because I'm accepting that it has count, but I'm also saying that it's countless. So he's saying, so countless is not the direct negation of having count. If I say, no, countless is the direct negation of having count, then I can say that it's countless and has count.
I accept.
Okay, take the subject, limitless. It follows it is not the direct negation of having a limit.
So what he's doing now is he's giving me the exact parallel with another word, right? He's trying to see, like, do I really believe this? I'm saying countless is not the direct negation of having count. So he's like, okay, then would you also say that limitless is not the direct negation of having a limit? Right? And I'm gonna accept, think.
Why?
Oh, I'm not gonna accept.
So it follows that if it exists, it-less is necessarily the direct negation of having it.
Okay, so now watch this. If it exists, then it-less is the direct negation of having it. Okay, mind you, let me make this very clear. When we started this, there's no sense that we're going to have to talk about something like this, right? So I don't feel like if you don't understand what this means, let's say, that you could never have this debate. No, that's not that at all, right? But there's something very weird happening here with the way I'm using my words. And Venerable Donyo is trying to understand exactly then, how am I using these words, right? So if it's limitless, it's the direct negation of having limit. I accept that. So then would I say that anything less is the direct negation of having the anything? You see? It is Tibetan for X, like just for a variable.
Didn't accept that limitless is the.
Oh, thank you. See, I'm having a hard time keeping track. Thank you for catching that. No, you're right. I denied that. I deny it. I said limitless basically is the direct negation of having limit. Is what I'm implying here, and I say why, right? So now he's trying to establish, well, don't you agree with this grammatical convention? Don't you agree with just the way the English language works, that blankless means not having blank, right?
Why?
And I don't.
Okay, so take the subject countless. It follows it is not the direct negation of having a count because.
So now he's going to get to the particular again, the subject, countless. It is not the direct negation of having count, right? Which is what I said here, right? Because, so now he's going to ask me to explain what the hell am I talking about?
Because it refers to a finite number that a human being can't count up to.
Okay, so it follows.
And suddenly, I flatter myself to think, the whole thing becomes coherent. I think, right? At least he understands what I'm saying now, right? Because when I'm using the word countless, basically just ask me to explain how I'm using that word. When I use the word countless, what I mean is a finite number that a human being cannot count up to, right? Meaning it's not a number that can't be counted in theory. ChatGPT could do it, but a human being can't count up to. That's what the word countless means.
There exists a finite number which a human being cannot count up to.
I accept.
And it follows that a human being cannot count up to it.
So he changed the subject here. The subject, finite number that a human being cannot count up to. He said it exists. I accept. And so he's asking me to take that side.
So posit it follows if it is a number, it is necessarily finite.
Why?
Posit an example.
Okay. So the implication here is there is a number that is not finite. He's asking for an example.
Take the subject a transfinite number.
Okay,
Take the subject to
let me pause here. How are we doing? I feel this is the point that I think we always make it up to before we're like, let's stop. Let's stop let's stop at transfinite number. Let's review this from the.
What's a transfinite number?
Nobody knows so far.
Oh, okay.
Something that gets said in a moment of despair.
Oh.
It is a real thing, but you like I'm not anticipating the Venerable Donya would necessarily know, like a transfinite number is a concept in math of something that is actually a number and it's infinite. That's a whole other conversation, I think. But like mathematicians accept the existence of certain infinite numbers, specific infinite numbers, the Aleph numbers, for example, Aleph null, Aleph 1, Aleph 2. At the time that I had, like, I learned a lot more about it after this debate. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Pi a transfinite number?
Sorry?
Pi, is that transfinite?
No, pi is a transcendental number.
Oh God.
It's an irrational number. Yeah. No, there are no numbers that you've heard of that are transfinite numbers unless you've heard of transfinite numbers.
Where did you learn about these numbers?
What's that?
Where did you learn about these numbers?
On the internet. Like on the internet, I went and in fact, I've been learning more about them than I care to admit since like this debate got me thinking, that again, debate, right? There's all sorts of things, cardinal numbers and ordinal numbers that are transfinite, and then there are numerosities of transfinite numbers. It's a whole thing, but in any case, so here's what's happened so far. Sentient beings are infinite. Yes. Countless. Yes. Countless means infinite. Why? Well, how do they compare? Whatever is infinite is countless, but there's something that's countless that is not infinite. We'll give an example. The number of eons needed to become enlightened. Oh, the number of eons needed to become enlightened is countless? Yeah, I accept. And then here we go into a little tangent temporarily. What does it mean to become enlightened? It means having done X, Y, and Z. So take that thing that you just said. It's something a living being can do? Yeah. It takes a countless number of eons to do that. Now we're tying it back, right? Right to here, it is countless. It takes a countless number of eons to do that? Yeah. Okay, so let's think about that number, the number of eons it takes to become enlightened. It's countless, yeah? Why? Well, because it takes 3 times a countless set of eons to become enlightened. So it's 3 times countless, basically, is what I'm saying. Okay, then let's just focus on one of those eons then, right? Let's not talk about like 3 sets of countless, like just focus on one countless eons. The subject, one of those countless eons, it's uncountable. And to everybody's surprise, I presume I said, no, it's not uncountable. Well, but hold on, but you said it's countless. Yeah, I said it's countless, but that doesn't mean it's uncountable. Wait, so it is countable then? Yeah, it's countable. So it has a count. Yeah, it has a count. So it is count having. Yeah, it's count having. But so it's not countless. Why? Well, because it's countful. No, that doesn't, yes, it is countful, but that doesn't mean that it's not countless. Okay, so hold on, let's back up. Countless, right? Is that the direct negation of having count? I'm sorry, so take the subject countless. It's not then, it's not the direct negation of having count. Yeah, that's right, it's not. Well, so what would you say, limitless is not the direct negation of having limit? No, I wouldn't say that. Limitless is the direct negation of having limit. Hold on, let's clarify our terms. Whatever exists, it less is the direct negation of having it. I'm like, nope, that's not true. And then he's basically like, okay, fine, I guess that's not true, right? All right, well, so let's go back to countless. Countless is not the direct negation of having count, right? Why? Well, because countless just means that it's a finite number that a human being can't count up to. Oh, okay. So let's think about that then. A finite number that a human being can't count up to. You're saying that that exists? Yes. And now he's like, okay, let me get a sense here of how you think about things. Would you say that whatever is a number is necessarily finite? I'm saying no. He's saying, okay, so there's a number that is not finite. I'm saying, yeah. It's like, can you give me an example? And I'm saying a transfinite number. Okay. Would you guys like to stop here? Show of hands real quick, please. Don't hesitate to answer honestly. Raise your hand if you'd rather stop here. Oh, raise your hand if you'd rather keep moving. Keep watching, I mean. Okay. There are a couple of abstentions, but okay. All right. Sorry, we'll keep sorry to those who voted otherwise. Okay.
Finite number follows it as a number.
Okay, just give me 1 second just to catch up here. So now we're moving on to a new subject. The subject, a transfinite number. He's saying it is a number, right? And I'm going to have to accept that because he asked me for an example of a number that is not finite. And he said a transfinite number, so it must be an example of a number.
I accept.
The number because
Because I heard somebody say so.
Oh, okay.
No,
That's
wait.
they probably had really good reason too. The reason just we don't know.
A transfinite number is a number because of being a cardinal number.
Okay, so here I was wrong, as it turns out. I've since learned, okay? But poor Venerable Donio probably doesn't know that, as I didn't at the time, you know, like again, I'm just going on the assumption, I don't know this to be true, but I'm going on the assumption that he hasn't studied number theory and set theory of infinite cardinalities. But if he hasn't, then he doesn't know that, right? So I give him something that he doesn't quite know what to do with. He could ask me more to see whether he knows this to be true or not. He could just ask me more to see whether this is even coherent, you know? So a cardinal number is a number. A cardinal number is not finite, so it's infinite. So you can't count it. So blah, 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 blah. But let's see what he does.
Okay. So it follows you can posit the definition of take the subject finite number. It follows it has a definition.
Okay, so he's not going to pursue the whole cardinal number thing. So he's going to say the subject finite number. It follows that it has a definition.
Finite number?
Yeah.
I accept.
Positive.
Take the subject. A number that could be counted by an omniscient being.
Take the subject, a number that could be counted by an omniscient being.
So you see, so whenever I posit something, an example or an answer, like when he asks me to posit something and I posit it, the rule of thumb typically is that he's going to use that as the subject, right? To then kind of inquire further into what I'm thinking. So here's the subject, a number that could be counted by an omniscient being.
It follows that it's the definition of a finite number.
I'm sticking to it. I accept.
Okay, take the subject, the number of living beings. Follows that it is a finite number.
Why?
Because it can.
Okay, sorry, hold on. Number, I accept. So now we move back to the subject. The number of living beings. It is a finite number. Why? And he's in the middle of telling me why, because.
Counted by omniscient being.
Okay. Because it can be counted by an omniscient being, right? So now he got me to give my definition of a finite number, right? And now he's using that to go back to our root thesis, right? The root thesis is that sentient beings are infinite, right? And now that he's got me to define what I mean by finite, it's like, then the number of living beings is finite. Why? Because it can be counted by an omniscient being. And you said that that's the definition of a finite number. You follow? So one way to think about this, which is, not doing it justice, but just to put it in simplistic terms, is that everything from here to here, oh, hold on. All of these things here is Venerable Donyo fishing for more understanding of my thoughts so that he can say something to me in accordance with what I already understand to prove that my root thesis is wrong. Right? Sentient beings are infinite. How can I prove to Gus that this is wrong? Well, let's see what Gus believes. Are they countless? Is whatever is countless infinite? You say the number of eons needed to become enlightened is countless, but is not infinite. Well, what do you mean by becoming enlightened? Like he's getting more and more information, right? It takes a countless number of eons to do that. It's countless because why? It takes 3 times countless. So it's countless, having count, this, that, countless. Okay, fine. And what you're saying, Gus, is coherent, right? Still within that. Okay, so then what do you mean by countless, right? Specifically, right? Oh, this is what you mean by countless. Okay, so what do you mean by finite, right? Oh, by finite, you mean it can be counted by omniscient being. Aha, I got you now, he surely is thinking, right? If what you mean by finite is a number that could be counted by omniscient being, then surely the number of living beings is finite because it can be counted by omniscient being. Okay. Thoughts, questions at this point? Yeah, Linda?
I'm kind of gnawing on the idea that a human being couldn't count a number. I
Sure.
guess. I mean, I can see where an omniscient being, I guess, in theory, could count a really large number, but I guess the assumption on the defender on your side is there isn't time or something like that to count it.
Exactly. So if you were the challenger, you'd go right into that, you know, you'd be like, oh, wait, you're saying that there are numbers that a human being can count up to? Okay, let's hear more about that nonsense, right? Is where you would head. Venerable Donyo seems for now at least to be accepting or not challenging me outright on this notion that I have that there is a number that a human being cannot count up to, right? It's like, so you're saying that exists? I'm like, yeah, it exists. You could choose to go into that. But you say, all right, fine, let's just leave that aside, right? And if you had asked me to explain why I think that there is such a thing, I would have said exactly what you said, that, you know, human lifespans are limited. And so even if somebody counted constantly and did nothing else, at a certain point, they'd stop because they die, you know? So like a Googleplex is a number that a human being could never count up to, I would say, you know?
I think the other thing that came to mind at the start was of the length of an eon. I don't know if it's a variable, in which case it couldn't be counted.
That is a great point. That is a great point. It's not relevant to what we're debating, because what my claim is, again, we're debating just what I'm claiming, right? My claim is that there's a countless number of eons, even if they're just a second long each, that the number of them is countless, right? So if I said the time it takes is countless, then you should say what you just said. Follow? Yeah. So I said, why? He said, because, oh, I didn't say why, sorry. I said, reason is not established. He said, because it can be known by an omniscient being. So notice this because here, right, is trying to prove this reason here, right? That's like the reason is not established. You can stack that, right? So you can say the subject, whatever it is a finite number. Why? Because it can be counted by an omniscient being. Who says it can be counted by an omniscient being? It can be counted by an omniscient being because it can be known by an omniscient being, right? So if I accept this, then I'm accepting that, right? I said that more confusingly than it is. Well, let's see.
There's no pervasion.
Follows if it's okay.
So, right, so what I said is there is no pervasion, meaning I'm saying it can be known by an omniscient being, but the fact that something can be known by an omniscient being doesn't mean that it can be counted by an omniscient being, right?
Because, so I'll just restate it to make it clear. Follows if it's known by an omniscient being, it is not necessarily counted by an omniscient being.
He's just forcing me here to spell it out, right? He's forcing me to accept the spelled out. If it is known by an omniscient being, it is not necessarily counted by an omniscient being, right? In other words, there is something that is known by an omniscient being that is not counted by an omniscient being.
Except
Follows if it's a number which is known by an omniscient being, then it's necessarily counted by an omniscient being.
If it's a number that is known by an omniscient being, then it is necessarily counted by an omniscient being. Okay, so can somebody actually let's do a reading comprehension question here. Can somebody guess why from here Venerable Donya went to here?
Is he trying to show that an omniscient being knowing and counting this number is the same thing?
That might be, yeah, that might be where he's trying to get to. Yes. I guess what I'm asking about specifically is if I accept that there is something that is known by an omniscient being, but is not counted by an omniscient being, what does Venerable Donyo gain by changing it to, well, what about a number? If it's a number that is known by an omniscient being, then it's necessarily counted by an omniscient being.
To me, it seems like, does the being, omniscient being, just know? They don't have to sit somewhere and count.
That's exactly the position that I'm going to defend, actually. But I think what I'm trying to get at is this is trivially true. You know, like what I just said, that there is something that is known by an omniscient being but is not counted by an omniscient being, that is trivially true, because, you know, like the taste of honey is known by an omniscient being but isn't counted by an omniscient being, right? So Venerable Donya is saying, like, all right, so let's say we leave out the trivially true cases. Let's think about, what about numbers, only numbers? If a number is known by an omniscient being, then would you say that it's counted by an omniscient being?
the number that is known by an omniscient being, then it's necessarily counted by an omniscient being.
So it follows you can posit the way in which is known by an omniscient being. The subject, the number of beings. Follows
the number of beings.
Yeah.
Okay. So now changing the subject once again, subject, the number of beings, right? So the number of sentient beings. You can posit the way in which it is known by an omniscient being, right? You see, because I'm saying that number is known by an omniscient being but not counted by an omniscient being. So okay, so if it's known by an omniscient being but not counted by an omniscient being, how is it known?
It follows you
take the subject being known to be infinite.
So it follows if something is a number which is counted or countable, which is counted, then it's necessarily counted serially, beginning with 0 and going up the number line of real numbers to on up until it's reached.
I accept.
So take the subject, the number of eons it takes to reach enlightenment. It follows that it is counted in such a way.
I accept.
Right?
And it follows it's counted in such a way because essentially it has a limit.
I accept.
Take the subject number of beings. It follows it does not have a limit.
I accept.
Right. Follows that, did he say that it follows that it does not have a limit?
Follows it has a limit because it has an end.
The reason is not established.
Take the subject, the number of sentient beings, meaning beings, living beings who are not enlightened. Follows that
Okay. Okay. How are you guys doing with this part? Are you following along? Right? So he asked me the number. So first of all, the number of eons to reach enlightenment, can it be counted in the way that I said, that numbers are counted? I said, yeah, it can be counted in the way numbers are counted. I said, oh, well, then it has a limit. Okay, I think actually that's because he had said until the limit is reached. So it has a limit then. Yeah, it has a limit, right? So now let's go back to the number of beings, which is, again, our root thesis here. So you're saying, Gus, that it doesn't have a limit. That's right. I'm saying it doesn't have a limit. No. It does have a limit, though, because it has an end. I'm saying the reason is not established. It doesn't have an end, right? You say, okay. Now, so we've been talking about the number of beings. You're saying it doesn't have an end. Let's simplify this a little bit. Let's see, what do you think? Let's just talk about the number of sentient beings, meaning of beings that aren't enlightened yet, right? We're just, instead of talking about all beings, including Buddhas, let's see, what do you think about sentient beings?
it does not have an end.
I accept.
Follows it has an end because there exists a time in which it is 0.
Okay, this is very good. It does have an end because there exists a time in which it is 0, right? So here's what he's positing. He's positing that the number of sentient beings must have an end because there will be a time when the number of sentient beings will be 0. At that time, the number of beings, sentient beings, will have an end, right? Meaning, as when all beings have become enlightened, then there will only be enlightened beings. There won't be any sentient beings. So at that time, the number of sentient beings will be 0. So if there will be a time when the number of sentient beings is 0, then the number of sentient beings has an end. This is what Venerable Donyu is saying.
I took that to mean the other end, like the start of beginningless time. So I would have been confused.
Got it. No, that's okay. You wouldn't. It's funny to say whether you would be confused or not, but I hereby submit that you wouldn't be confused. You would just approach it from a different end.
Well, it opens up one question I have. I don't understand beginningless time and how everything started. So that's a whole, anyway, I can go off into left field or Idaho or somewhere on that one.
That's where the subject of this debate actually started from. You know, my dad said something to me about something to how can time be beginningless, you know, and they said because sentient beings are anyway. So yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. But
There is no pervasion.
Follows that if there exists a time in which such and such number has an end, it is not necessarily a finite a number which is what did I say?
okay, hold on. Let's see if we can help him out. If there is a time at which a given number has an end, it does not necessarily mean that whatever he's going to say next.
Finite.
Was it finite? It's finite because it has an end, because it's no. If there's a time at which that has an end, then
a limit.
It has a limit. Thank you. Yeah. Then it does not necessarily have a limit.
I accept that if it, just to make sure that I'm accepting everything, I accept that if there's a time when it has an end, it does not necessarily have a limit.
So take the subject, the time of the end of non-enlightened beings.
Okay, hold on. The subject, the time of the end of non-enlightened beings.
Follows that that is not the limit. Let me put it this way. It follows that that is a time when the number of non-enlightened beings has been exhausted. Yeah.
I accept.
So it follows that it goes in a way such, you know, that those beings disappearing, that it could be becoming non-existent, can be counted as if a real number line going one on up.
Um, okay. Here, Venerable Donio said something that it was his turn now to say something that grammatically it doesn't, that you know, to say what he really meant to say grammatically would take a paragraph, right? But he said something and I understood. And that's the thing about debate that can't be captured through a video or like a dissection like this, is that when you're in the room with somebody, to some extent, like hopefully like you're on the same wavelength, and then somebody says something and you get what they mean, right? In a way that a video can't quite capture. So I understood what he meant here. You'll notice that the way he said it, the process of those beings becoming non-existent can be counted on a real number line. This doesn't actually relate to the subject, right? This doesn't have an it anywhere in here, right? So technically I should have said you've lost the subject, you know, like this isn't relating back to the subject anymore. Now you're just saying a statement like in the ether, right? But again, I understood what he meant. What he meant is if this exists, right? If it exists, if the time of the end of non-enlightened beings exists, then it follows that the process of those beings becoming non-existent can be counted on a real number line, meaning you're going to say, okay, one sentient being less because they are enlightened, two sentient beings less, three sentient beings less, ha, 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 right? Okay.
I'm sorry, you said at that time.
So at the time, let's just, so it follows that we could posit that the time at which there are zero sentient beings is a zero on a number line, and the time it takes for each of the beings to become enlightened is another notch up on the number line. Follows that that zero is reached at a certain time.
Okay. I'm not going to explain this one. It's too self-evident. Or I just can't.
I don't contradict myself, but I'm going to say why.
Follows it's reached because it exists.
Why?
It follows it exists because it is something which is well, and it's a little silly just to use the definition of existent here, but because it is observed by a gauge mind, or a reliable, definitive cognition, which is based in reason and experience.
Reason is not established.
Reason is not true. Okay, so take the subject, a time at which there are no sentient beings. It follows it is not known by a gauge mind.
I accept.
It follows it is known by a gauge mind because, so take the subject, a sentient being who never becomes enlightened. Okay, it follows that they possess.
Okay. So he started to say something and then he backtracked and said something else. Okay. Let me pause here and say this. At this point, and this has been happening more and more, but at this point, very, very clearly, there's a lot of steps that were skipped to get from here to here. Okay. So all that we're talking about the time of the end of non-enlightened beings, and he's saying it's known by an engaged mind, and he was going to give a reason, but he kind of skipped several steps, and he said, well, then let's talk about a sentient being that never becomes enlightened. Now, there's no logical connection between these 2 points, right? But if for somebody who's been kind of contemplating Buddhist topics for a long time and is familiar with the scriptures and the implications and so forth, the bridge between these two is very clear, right? So if I'm saying that it's not known by a reliable cognition, then I'm saying that it doesn't exist. What doesn't exist? The time of the end of non-enlightened beings. So I'm saying in this debate very bravely that there is no such thing as the time of the end of non-enlightened beings, which Venerable Donyo is then kind of making the connections to say, okay, then there will never be a time when there's an end of non-enlightened beings, so there will always be non-enlightened beings, so there will always be a sentient being that has not become enlightened, so there is a sentient being that never becomes enlightened. That's how I would say he got from here to here. Okay.
As a mind.
I accept.
I'm gonna pause here because for time considerations, among other things. But what he's just to let you know, what he's going to do now is he's going to go into this, like he's assuming erroneously that that I agree that there is a sentient being that never becomes enlightened. Okay, and then he's going to prove to me why that's ridiculous, why that's impossible, and it's going to be fine because I'm going to accept everything that he says, because of course it is impossible. Of course, this is ridiculous. There is no such thing, right? But then at the end, he's going to be like, well, hold on. So if you're saying that a sentient being, that there is no such thing as a sentient being that never becomes enlightened, then surely there will be a time of the end of non-enlightened beings. And I'm still going to say no. Okay, let me stop there. And just, this is completely beyond the scope of anything, but just so that you guys don't think that I'm just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. My understanding is that if we're talking about a finite set of things, if you do something to each of those things, then that something will have been done to all of those things. Right? I mean, we don't even need to think about, because that's just like, if I eat each banana, then all of the bananas will have been eaten, right? With an infinite set, it doesn't work that way. It's very counterintuitive at first. It's very shocking. But each sentient being will become enlightened. Each one will. If you point at one, yes, that one will become enlightened. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there will ever be a time when all sentient beings are enlightened. This is my position. I'm not saying this is the truth. This is my position based on my current understanding of mathematics. No more, no less. Okay? And you can think about it like if you think about counting, like imagine somebody was immortal and they were just going to count forever and ever and ever. There was no limit. So for any number that you say, that number will be reached at some point, right? That number will be counted, but it's never going to be the case that all numbers have been counted already. It's interesting.
So are we dealing with an infinite set of sentient beings or a finite set? Because you're positing that it's an infinite set, right? Which means that not all of them could ever be enlightened.
That's the stance that I'm taking in this debate. Exactly. That's the stance that I'm taking in this debate. Like the stance that I'm taking in this debate is that if you look at the set of sentient beings, it is an infinite set. What does that mean? Well, not on its own, but based on other things that I would also posit, it means that for any given sentient being in that set, that being is definitely going to become enlightened. And it follows also from what I'm saying that there will never be a time when we can say all beings have become enlightened. It sounds contradictory on the face of it, but when you really think it through, I don't think it's contradictory.
How can an infinite number be contained within a set?
Oh man, that is a great question. That is a great question, which unfortunately this margin is too narrow to contain. That is a question about the foundation of mathematics. Most mathematicians today hold that there can be a completely infinite set that exists, but there are some that don't, and there is debate about that, and I'm neither qualified nor do I have time. But this much I do want to say. I want to make very clear that this was a debate that we were having. I mean, if you hadn't noticed, right? But what I mean to say is that we were trying things out. We were experimenting with concepts here, right? Buddhist doctrine doesn't say that the set of limited beings is infinite, nor does it say that it's finite, which is why this was a debate that was interesting to have, right? It doesn't, so this is an open question as far as Buddhist tradition is concerned. And so we were having kind of, we were having fun, but like we were experimenting, we were thinking it through and saying, could it be this? Could it be that? What would follow from this? What would follow from that? So it is not the case that Buddhism says that there will never come a day when beings are enlightened. It doesn't say that. That's just kind of debate. Okay. I will be sending you guys a resource for continuing debate, but aside from that for a moment, any last thoughts, questions, concerns?
I just thank you, Gus, and everyone for continuing on this. It's just amazing. Thank you.
No, you guys are fantastic. I'm so grateful that you guys have this interest, that there's this flame burning with interest for this, that you guys have been so active and so engaged. There's no stopping that all the way to enlightenment. So it's really fantastic. I really rejoice in that. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I feel very grateful to you all, really, truly. Also, everything is impermanent, so we don't know which will come next, whether the next breath or the next life. But aside from that, I'm not planning to go anywhere, so you're always welcome to reach out. Any questions or anything like that. I apologize in advance and thank you for your patience in advance that I'm a very slow get back to people, but please don't hesitate, at least on my end, to reach out. So I asked Venerable Donyo, and I knew he would say yes, but he very kindly of course, said that you would be very welcome. All of us would be very welcome to participate in the weekly. You just see exactly what he said back again. I read it a few days ago. Yeah, the time is the same. So it's so I want to say it's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. New York time on Sundays. But he asked that anybody who's interested to join the WhatsApp group, and this is the link to that.
I don't have WhatsApp.
I don't know from WhatsApp myself, so I don't know how it works. Let me see what happens when I click on the link.
It
think-
started.
Let's
Yeah,
just-
I think when you click on the link, it takes you to a website. So I don't think you need.
But you'll need to have WhatsApp itself. You'll need to have a WhatsApp account to be able to use it.
You do need to.
I
Okay.
started using it when I started taking classes in the UK.
Yeah, it's big in Europe and the UK, but you can just get it on your
Yeah.
iPhone or your Android.
It's free, right?
Yeah, it's free.
So
Okay.
so
So
very
that's Venerable Danyo's site, and he's sort of like running that one.
yeah. He's spearheading this, and his motivation, by the way, is His Holiness the Dalai Lama said that it would be really good for Westerners to learn the system of debate, like not just in a Dharma context, just to clarify our thinking and our ideas about all sorts of topics. And Venerable Donyo has always said this. Venerable Donyo kind of heard it. He's like, okay, then let's do it, which is really, really inspiring, really beautiful. And so his aim is to bring Tibetan debate to the West, which is really amazing. Anyway, and let me just then, I feel like, I need to honor the momentousness of the occasion by saying something. So I'll say, don't be daunted. Don't be daunted. There's an old saying that I love: what one fool can do, another fool can do also, right? So if I was able to, over time, to kind of get the hang of this, and you guys can absolutely get the hang of this. And I'm saying this if anybody feels like they don't have the hang of it already. And yeah, I feel like you guys really are really getting there. And anything that, like, if you ever look at it and like kind of your eyes kind of glaze over, that you're looking at the top of the mountain, you're not going to get there in one leap. By taking steps, manageable steps, at some point you're going to look down and you'll be like, oh man, I'm at the top of the mountain, right? So take heart, and this will be fun. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's end by dedicating all the positive potentials that we've created, not just today, but throughout this whole course. So much has been imprinted on our minds. So many, it's almost like each thing we do is like a little force pushing the mind in a given direction, general direction. And so we want to aim specifically in the direction of developing our understanding of things more and more, our clarity, our facility with logical thinking, clear and organized thinking more and more, so that we can develop our compassion more and more deeply, because compassion is really the only attitude that stands up to reason. That really stands up in the light of day when we have clarity. So we want clarity so that we can develop compassion, so we can develop loving kindness, so we can develop renunciation of suffering and its causes, so we can develop bodhicitta that wants to attain omniscience in order to bring all beings to the bliss of enlightenment. May all of our positive potentials be for that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to meet all of you and to get to know you. And I do hope to cross paths again very soon.
So I mentioned this earlier. I mean, thank you guys, and thank you everybody, that we're going to keep the Zoom room for this time on Sundays through the summer, and we'll see how it goes. So if you're available, pop in. If not, and we'll try it. And then hopefully we can start again in the fall. Gus, you're interested?
I'm very happy to.
Great. We'll discuss that. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much, guys. That's been
Thank you,
brilliant.
Gus.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Gus, I have one more question for you before you leave. Oh, he left. All right, good. Never mind. I'll call him. Anyway, thank you, everybody. It's been really great working with all of you.
Bye, everyone.
Hopefully see you
Bye.
next week.
Yeah.
Bye.